Hi everyone, welcome to Conversation with Kushal once again. Today we have the power couple from ISB who are going to help us understand about their life, who are going to help us understand about a lot of advice related to startups, entrepreneurship and many more things. So they're also my neighbors. I'm also very privileged to have their company whenever I need any help. So thank you so much Abhishek and Sneha for doing this. It's an absolute honor to host you.
Thank you so much, Kushal.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's our honor that you are here, and it's inspiring to see the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Means a lot. Firstly, I just wanted to mention that this house is amazing. I'm just flabbergasted by the interiors, firstly, and the space which is there. So, this is a lovely house. Thank you so much for inviting me here.
You're always
Most welcome.
So, if I can just ask, is it an owned flat or have you guys rented it?
We rent it, and this is owned by a family who lives in Mumbai, but not owned by us.
Got it. And if I may ask, what's the typical rent in houses like these?
Look, Trump Tower typically would have a rent of about 2.5 lakhs per month, ballpark, and but there are many other buildings in this community, so the rent would range between 1.5 to 2.5 depending on where you live.
Got it. Makes sense. So, any reason of renting a flat and not owning it? What's the thesis behind that?
So,
I think there's a funny story behind this, is it?
yeah. Look, we do own a couple of houses, but it's almost like, and Sneha puts it in a better way, so I'll let her explain it. But we typically end up liking things, but not able to afford it, and so we rent things which we are not able to afford, and we put our money in investments where we can make some more money from those real estate investments. But Sneha puts it in a better way.
So, somebody told me this, and I totally agree with this, is your aspirations are always ahead of your wallet, right? Now, the choice you need to make is, do you live where what your wallet permits, or are you willing to rent, meet your aspirations, but at the same time also putting your wallet to good use in assets that make return for you?
I might just want to add, look, Kushal, typically the rental yields for properties like these typically do not justify in today's market to buy these properties. So typically a property like this would cost, let's say, circa 10 CR, and the rental yield minus the maintenance and other things, you end up making 2 to 2.5% of rental yield, and that does not justify a good return on money that you could invest in today's times in other assets. So there are times and there are places in this country where money will yield better returns, and we think that it's better to be invested that way rather than buying a house.
Got it. But then you also mentioned that you've bought a couple of houses, right? So what's the idea behind buying those houses? Because I'm sure the rental yield would there also be 2 to 3% per annum. So what's the thesis behind?
Yeah, some of these are probably just as you grow, you need to park some money in real estate as a backup opportunity. That if you were to go out of job, not have something, you at least have a place to go to. Some of these are investments which may or may not have done very well, but you take a decision based on that point in time. And for a long period of time, we were in London, and so we wanted to invest some of our money back in India. And at that point of time, we thought real estate. And when you're outside the country, you think everything in India is booming so well that real estate. And you would have heard stories about people putting money in Gurgaon and money 10x ho gaya over a period of 5 years. So you get into some of those decisions, right or wrong, and that's what's led for us to have some of those real estate investments.
But in your previous experiences, at least with what I've spoken to a lot of people, they've mentioned that the capital appreciation, at least in Bombay in the last 5-6 years, have not been that high as compared to tier 2 cities like Gurgaon, Noida, or not Gurgaon, like Noida, Nasik, or any other tier 2 cities. So, have you experienced property appreciation or capital appreciation in real estate in the last few years in Bombay?
Not
No.
in Bombay.
No, neither in Bombay, not so much in NCR. But our investments in tier 2 cities have been really good. So,
Which kind of cities would these be?
so I was brought up in Udaipur. So my family, my parents lived there, and we made some investments in Udaipur, which generate far better returns than anywhere else. So, it's topical that I'm building a business for tier 2 cities right now, but we'll talk about that later. But if you have money today, I think investing in the emerging cities, not the metros, is probably a better choice.
Got it. So what kind of investments would these be at Udaipur? Like real estate itself? Or?
Yeah, I'm particularly talking about real estate at this point.
Got it. Makes sense.
But mostly commercial. It's
Yeah.
less residential in these cities. It's more commercial because the economic activity is booming so much that if you have a place that works as either shops, mall, offices, paying guests, I think those kind of opportunities give you very good returns.
Yeah,
It makes sense. How much return can one expect in a commercial yield, commercial risk?
I think it
About
should be
6%.
better than FD. And then if there's a capital appreciation on top of it, it starts to get some sort of index returns.
Got it. So from what I understand, this would be like a diversification strategy for you also, in terms of portfolio should be diversified between risk-free, not risk-free, but less risky assets versus more risky assets. So if you can also guide us in terms of how is your portfolio diversified between different asset classes, that'll be helpful to understand.
So our first big chunk of our years went into buying real estate. See, we are also Indians at the end of the day, right? So that mindset of ek ghar to hona chahiye stays no matter how much mathematics and logic you put behind it. I think after that, once we had some free capital from there, equity was the next asset class that we started investing in. Initially, it was more mutual fund and direct equity. But I think also once you get to a stage where you can do more PMS, more structured equity buys, I think you should do that, because they are always able to give you good guaranteed returns, which depending on your own expertise, you may or may not be able to generate. From then on, we went on to start investing in commercial real estate was the third one that we did. Then we started doing a bit of bonds, golds. We've lately been speaking about how do we invest some money in non-Indian entities. But yeah, I think that's pretty much covers our investment diversification.
But you would have realized there is very little debt in it. And that has been our personal choice, given the stage of life we are in and given the stage at which the country is. We typically end up making more moderate risk, moderate return kind of investments. And I think it's a very personal choice. I've met people in our friend circle who would do more of a fixed deposit kind of savings and say, okay, my money is safe, rather than putting into a risky asset. And then there'll be people who will be SIP oriented, and then some people who would invest in startups and all.
Right.
I think it's a spectrum that, depending on who you're talking to, will change. We are very long on India, and we think that at this point of time, put money into equity, slightly moderate risk categories,
Right.
Yeah.
returns will come.
Both of us are very active angel investors. So I think that would probably form the riskiest part of our portfolio. But
What
I think
proportion of the entire portfolio would be startup investments?
percentage wise, it would be close to 8 to 9%.
Okay, got it.
So if you look at the kind of risk the portfolio brings, for our appetite, that's the kind
Right.
of cap we want to have at this stage. But I think it's not so much about the number, it's about do we find the right entrepreneurs to
Right.
back.
Yeah.
Right? And if we do, then of course we are willing to move money from some other asset class to this. But I think we don't start with thinking itna paisa startup mein dalna hai. It's about you keep meeting people, you keep talking to people. If you like them, then bet on it.
Got it. Makes sense.
And it's a joint check, right? So it has to, both of us have to say
if you
yes.
have to invest, then you have to take an approval as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Same goes the other way.
So every investment has to go through an IC committee for it to be approved. So that's how it is.
I think let's also talk more about your current journeys as well. We've not discussed what do you guys do, and everyone would love to know that as of now, what are you guys doing? So if you can just quickly tell that as well.
So I am currently on a break. Till about recently, I was the global CMO for a D2C startup. Before that, I've spent time at brands like Aditya Birla Group, Nestle, Dabur. We've spent 5 years in London, so I've worked in the Europe market, Europe business of Dabur. I think, again, great experience for me. Currently, I've been on a break for the last 3 months. What I'm using my time right now actively is to connect with a lot of startups, because we are active angel investors, just look at what's happening, but also figure out how can I use some of my experience and help startups who really need help on, let's say, branding, consumer understanding, positioning, not so much performance marketing, but more like how can I really help them think more holistically in marketing. So that's something that I've been trying to do for the last couple of months. Yeah.
Got it. Fair.
And Sneha's being humble. She's been helping me tremendously in building my latest venture, which is called Pepper Money. So what we're doing is, and this kind of is a little bit of backdrop to it, is I started a company called Flexi Loans about 7 years ago. 4 of us from ISB actually. So my other 3 ISB batchmates and we started that company back in 2016. I exited that venture in 2022. And for the last year, I've been building a company called Pepper Money. Pepper Money is special because what we're doing is effectively building a financial services business for the tier 2 cities of India. And we were talking about the economic activity and all the momentum that is happening in non-metros. And I fundamentally believe that the next leg of growth in this country will come from the next 100 emerging cities. In fact, the government also calls them the smart cities. So, how can we build a business for those cities? And so, what we've decided to launch is called India's first city rewards card. So, we build one card per city, which allows users and merchants in that city to benefit from each other. And so, that's what I'm doing. It's only been 90 days that we started this. So, early days, we launched this at Global FinTech Festival. And again, a decade of hard work ahead of us now.
Got it. So in this, from what I understand, is like you're building like credit cards or debit cards for tier 2 cities?
Both.
Okay,
So it's a
got it.
prepaid card, credit card, and then personal loans business.
Got
So
it.
it's a combination of 3 products which we will.
Got it. So basically, this was not accessible to people like these in tier 2 cities. So that's what like you are making it accessible to those people as well.
Correct. So in India, just to give you some numbers, there are about 90 crore debit cards and about 8 to 10 crore credit cards. So the credit cards naturally are picking up now, and it's the next leg of growth for financial services. And so we believe that not everybody needs to have a credit card to be able to access rewards. Rewards should be available to everybody, irrespective of whether they hold a credit card or not. Because in this market, not everybody will be eligible or willing to take a credit card. So why should they not get rewards? So we're launching a rewards card, which they can use by spending their own money, and then they can take a credit card if they need credit.
Got it. And what's the reason behind one card per city? Like, can't this card be just same for all the cities?
That's the research insight. When we spoke to customers, the way a metro customer spends and the way a customer in Indore or Lucknow spends is very different. We spend more e-commerce, online, large brands, and so on. About 50% of a emerging city dwellers spend is not so much like us. It will be different. So we studied that pattern, said, okay, if they are spending somewhere else, then why should the rewards be for the ones that are in tier 1? And so we chose city as a landscape. Typically, cards business works really well when it is verticalized. So you will see there are travel cards, then there are shopping cards, then there are fuel cards. What we are trying to do is, instead of a verticalization, we are doing a horizontal split of it. And so a country is too large, so we've taken city as that horizontal and say, because people in a city behave similarly. इंदौर के लोगों को कुछ चीजें अच्छी लगती है, वो इंदौर के सारे लोगों को अच्छी लगती है. So why not? And Indore population is about 28, 29, 30 lakh, something in that range. So 30 lakh people is a large market for you to build a product for. I mean, you would have seen, I'll send you that image. There's India, every state is like a European country or a country's population. So Lucknow is equal to New Zealand in terms of population.
Yeah.
So it's amazing, right? New Zealand के अपने banks हैं ना. New Zealand has their own infrastructure. Yes, the per capita spend in Lucknow might be lower, but you could build a business only for Lucknow if you need to. And so my belief is, if I can take the top 60 cities, build a business for each of those cities, I can build 60 unicorns in those cities.
Wow, that's a very deep insight. And one follow-up question here. So what is something that you have observed as in consumer trends in tier 1 city versus a tier 2 city? So how is the spending pattern or consumption pattern different of a consumer who's in, let's say, Bombay versus someone who's in a tier 2 or tier 3 city?
I'll give you the financial side of it, and there will be other more, I'm sure, lots of research insights that Sneha can tell. What we are seeing from a spend perspective, one is, of course, the spend is different. The need for credit also is lower in tier 2 than it is in tier 1. Typically, because of the fact that there is a lot more avenues to spend and a lot more marketing being thrown at you, typically a tier 1 customer is always spending more, finding out more ways to spend, and hence seeking more credit to be able to spend. Tier 2 में हमको उतना नहीं दिखता अभी. Tier 2 में the need for credit is much lower than it is in tier 1.
Yeah, I think just to add to what he said, I think the fundamental thing is the need to spend ahead of what you have is way lower in tier 2. Which means it doesn't mean people don't have money, but people want to spend on things that they like spending on. They are also way more value conscious. So अगर एक गाड़ी खरीदनी है, they don't mind taking their own time to evaluate everything and then put that money. It's less driven by external stimulus, so less marketing, less FOMO driven. It's more like I will assess every car, test drive everything. uh, and then take that decision. I think it's also somewhere linked to time availability, right? Tier 2, because of the kind of lifestyle it offers you, you are usually at home, don't have so much to kind of worry about, distances are not much, your work, your friends, everybody's close by, people have more time. And I think they make good use of that in terms of extracting the best bang for their buck.
Also, talking about this, like a lot of people have the fear of failure of taking a plunge into entrepreneurship. And since both of you are pretty entrepreneurial in your own journeys, you advise startups and you've ran flexi loans, you're running Pepper Money as of now. So, wanted to understand how did you decide to take a plunge into entrepreneurship, and if you can also help people understand about your last drawn compensation in a job and how does that also affect the decision of taking a plunge into entrepreneurship. That'll be super helpful.
In 2015-16, and that's been about 3-4 years that we were in London, we felt that need to come back to India, and always emotional in the sense that families live here, parents are getting older, so we said, okay, we'll come back. And at that point of time, interestingly, a lot of things were happening in the industry. Fintech was coming up. You could see a lot of Western markets giving inspiration to Indian companies. Some of them had already become successful. So what makes you do a startup is a combination of 2 or 3 things. One is, are you stable enough at that point of time to be able to take no salary for a few years? Because a startup takes time for you to start giving you money
So,
back.
this few years, any specific number which we should allow?
I mean, I think typically you have to give it at least 6 to 12 months of complete experimentation, finding product market fit. At that point of time, every money has to go back into the company and not to your pocket. And especially, I'm assuming if you're bootstrapped, you're running your own venture. When you start to get funded, you start to draw some salary, but it's not sufficient as equal to what you would have drawn if you were in a job. So you're again taking a massive haircut on your potential earning, and that is roughly 2.5 years. So 1 to 3 years is that period where you have to keep your needs low, or you have to find alternate ways to support yourself. So that is one. So you have to solve for it. The second is a good idea and a good team, because you cannot just think, wake up one day and say mujhe startup karna hai. You have to have an idea, a very deep thesis on it. You have to have faced a problem yourself and so on. And the third is the timing itself, in terms of, is it the right time to start, which is dependent on where you are in your career. If you're already at the peak of your career, then your financial stability is solved, but do you need to do that now, and is there an internal motivation to do that now? For me in 2016, it was all three. One of the things we keep telling is a great way to start your to be financially stable is to have a spouse who's earning. So you kind of balance it. One person is taking the risk, and the other person is running the household. And that happened for us in 2016. I started flexi loans, and Sneha was supporting the household. So that's one. The second was a very strong motivation to come back to India, and so I wanted to do that, and flexi became that channel to do that.
That's why I think we're having this money conversation as well.
Yeah,
That's one of the reasons where people will get to know a lot of things from you guys. Since you're talking about managing money, can you also highlight your, let's say, monthly expenses and what proportion of expense is like the highest? How do you manage this? How has it changed over the last 5 years? That'll be good to understand.
Mm.
Yeah, so go ahead.
I think a large part living in Bombay goes towards renting.
If I may ask, so what for an individual who is just starting to work, let's say with an average salary of around 6-8 lakhs per annum, what proportion of rent should that expense be as a part of
Yeah.
income?
And so that should be about 15 to 20%. 20% circa mark. It could go up or down depending on your personal styles and choices.
So if your, let's say, income is 1 lakh per month, which
Yeah.
is 12 lakhs per annum, so you should spend about 15 to 20,000 per
Yeah.
month in rentals.
Anything more than that, then you are not making the best. I mean, and that's I'm also talking a little bit about the above average choice of houses. You could save more by living away from the office, living in a vicinity which will have a lower rental and so on. But at least personally, we felt that we've always been able to choose the right neighborhood, the right neighbors, and say, okay, 15 to 20% में अच्छा घर मिल जाता है.
Got it.
बॉम्बे में शायद थोड़ा
तो
maybe it
बॉम्बे
goes
शायद
to
25 से 30 चला जाता है.
yeah.
हाँ.
So 25 to 30% should be ideal in Bombay.
Yeah, 25%
25
should
on
be
the
ideal.
higher side,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
15 on the lower side.
15 on the lower
Okay.
side. But I want to work backwards on this. I think 50% of any income should be saved.
Okay.
मेरे को मेरे पापा ने सिखाया था कि simple है. He told me only two things when I was graduating. One is stay for 1 hour extra in office than other colleagues and save 50% of your income. That will give you the visibility and that will give you the saving. Everything else is upon your hard work. हुआ तो हुआ, नहीं हुआ तो नहीं हुआ, but you put your best effort and you've saved enough money. So coming back to your question, 50% बचा लो, 20% rent, so that leaves 30% for other things. Your bills, your experiences, your hobbies, things that you want to spend on, gifting, taking care of family, buy health insurance, all of that. So should be easily affordable for that category of 6 to 8 lakh rupees a year kind of
Got it.
income.
Personally, for us, I think one of the big changes that we have seen in our proportion of spends is पहले EMIs बहुत होती थी, right? क्योंकि both of us had education loans, उस वक्त दो घर थे, गाड़ी का loan, this, that, right? So we always used to feel कि यार ये EMIs खत्म ही नहीं होती. I think now when we are at a stage where a lot of it has been paid off, we still have one active EMI, but now we are very wary of starting new EMIs, right? So there are sometimes things where we think, yeah, let's take a loan, let's do this, right? And then suddenly we're like, no, we don't want to get caught in that. So I think the decrease in EMI has been a big shift in our financial mix, so to say. Baki to yaar, I think purely from a lifestyle expenses, at least ours has not shot up or down dramatically. I think at both stages we've lived life which made us happy. So not something ki ye bhi karna hai, ye bhi karna hai, ye bhi karna hai, but like these are the two things that we like spending on. So let's go all out. And then there are these 10 things that there's a lot of peer pressure to spend on, but if you don't want to, then don't.
We don't do
Right.
it. Yeah.
Makes sense. One trick question here. What's the best investment you've made and the worst expense that you've incurred in your life?
I know our investment answer is the same, but I know our
Yeah.
mistake answer is different. So you go ahead first.
So what we've absolutely enjoyed spending money on is traveling. So we travel a lot. Sneha's passion then now has become a household passion, is to travel the world. So we've traveled 38 countries together, or
36.
36 countries together. And
She's very good with numbers. Huh?
oh yeah, she's definitely good with numbers. Takes care of all the money in the house anyway. So
I better be good with numbers then.
we kind of invested in experiences. That's because I think that kind of will go with us for all of our lives. We've not fallen for, as Sneha was saying, peer pressure. So we rent a house. We don't drive a Mercedes. We drive a badhiya Honda City. It has got the fastest pickup. I'm the first person to go from the signal to the next signal, and it's been with us for 7 years. It's
बाकी
still
लोग ऐसे बोले कि we just stay in Trump Tower, you know, we just stay in a 2.5 lakh per month rental apartment. Huh? That's normal for us. Huh?
but no, there's a reason to it, right? The thing is, we actually cut down on a lot of other things because we enjoy living in this community.
Right.
It is a very good community. So we made a choice that we will over-index on this, but under-index on many other things. So we don't fly business class. We don't drive luxury cars. We do a lot of things that many other people with the same affluence might do. We choose not to do that so that we can do this.
Right.
Yeah. We actually don't, you won't believe, we spend very little on eating out or partying, right? Most of our parties is here. We invite people over, we're like, aa jao, khana hai, sab hai, just come over, chill, have a fun. We feel it gives us a better quality of time, right? We make deeper friendships because you're inviting people into your home. And it's not as expensive. So I
Right.
think it's just about being smart.
And what's the thing that you hate spending money on?
Yeah.
What do you first you give your answer?
Many years ago, I bought a Club Mahindra membership.
Okay.
Absolutely, I haven't used it. I hate that. And I was I bought that out of pressure, out of absolute pressure of a very good salesman.
What was the price that you had paid?
Yeah, that was. I mean, it was really a lot for the time
We
that I'm
paid
talking about.
1.6
Lakhs.
for it.
But 20 years ago. So
Not
15
20, 15 years
15
ago.
years ago.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of money back then, and we haven't been able to use it, and I absolutely regret it every time because they keep lapsing my nights and they say, okay, अभी आप ये use नहीं कर सकते अगले साल. Like what the? तो इसलिए वो थोड़ा सा. But what's yours?
Worst investment, not investment, but spend. Investment तो नहीं, but spend is, I think, the amount of money. No, not you. You're my best investment. But I think the worst is the amount of money we ended up spending in our wedding.
Okay.
I think वो जो शादियों में आप कपड़े खरीदते हो and you know the stuff that you buy, you never end up using it. It's just being sitting there, and all that is fairly expensive to buy, right? Especially when you're young, you have a certain income.
Yeah.
Of course, parents pitch in a lot, but parents का भी hard earned money ही है. So I think if you look at as a collective household spending, now in hindsight, I feel a lot of marriage clothes and maybe have a good ceremony, invite people over, but I think we spend so much on the peripherals and
Yeah, calling thousands of people.
extras. I think it's not good use of money at all.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, in India, a lot of these so-called big fat weddings are happening, and like people spend upwards of 1.5 CR, 2 CR easily. Like even the middle class, they are like saving a lot just so that they can
Just like spend on one day.
Spend on that one day itself.
Yeah.
And imagine what all you could do with that money in terms of that money generating return for you, giving you the freedom that I was talking about.
Correct.
Right? I mean, I feel इतना पैसा अगर आप उस couple को as startup capital दे दो, right? Or the capital for them to just take 3 months off and you know build their life together. I mean that would go a long way.
Right.
But yeah, that's
I
my
think a
unpopular opinion.
No, that's not actually. That's a very good opinion. Complementary skill sets की बात कर रहे थे ना. I think you guys can also become co-founders, very good co-founders in some startup or business. I'm sure you would have had that discussion.
हमारी शादी चल रही है अच्छे से. Look.
See, that will go against our own philosophy of diversifying risk.
Okay, got it.
That is definitely one reason. I also think that a workplace and a family are different places. So there's a lot more willingness to come together, do things, compromise, sacrifice, all of those things. A workplace starts to become a little bit more cutthroat, aggressive, because there's a financial goal at the end of it, and you also have shareholders. So and then there is no end to where does work finish and family start. So at least we fund a person, and there are a lot of people who are building businesses together as a family. So I'm not saying it's wrong or right. I'm only saying that for us, we made a conscious call that we will not work together because we are not prepared for any unforeseen complexities that might bring into our family, which is pretty stable.
Got it. No, makes sense, because there are like a lot of couples, like let's say Ashish Mohapatra and Ruchi Kalra of Business Oxyzo, even Varun Ghazal from Mamaearth. Like a lot of these people have started. So that's what I wanted to understand your viewpoint on this.
Yeah,
See, if you can crack that formula, brilliant, good for you. See, I think finding a co-founder is a journey in itself, right? If you happen to find the co-founder in your life partner, brilliant. But I don't think A equals B. Just because you are life partners doesn't mean you should be co-founder.
Makes sense. That's a brilliant answer, by the way. Just to end this podcast, by the way, I really enjoyed talking to the two of you. But just to end this podcast, like last question. So what's that one piece of financial advice you would like to give to all the youngsters who are watching this that can help them in their upcoming journeys as well?
See, I think one, ऐसा कोई magic formula नहीं है, to be honest. You have to do a lot of things, right? I think just being mindful about money, I think is very, very important, because you know, it's so easy, and especially in today's world, right? There's so much FOMO, there's so much peer pressure. You're constantly looking at 1,000 other people, looking at their life on Instagram. First of all, the lives on Instagram are not real lives, right? I mean, people have struggles and challenges beyond their Instagram lives. I think just being mindful of that and being very respectful with money. A lot of times when people think it's coming easy, so you know, let's splurge it, but it can also go away that easily. I think your relationship with money has to be mindful, respectful, give it the stature and headspace that it deserves. And yeah, I think that would be my advice.
Right.
Save 50% of your monthly salary. put it into
Spend 1 more hour in office. Is it?
spend 1 more hour in office. 25-year-old advice always works.
What's the reason we had spent 1 more hour in office, by the way?
I mean, of course, the earlier generation came from a point
to
where boss kitna dekh raha hai aur boss ko tum kitna dikh rahe ho, that mattered. So I think that's where it came from. I've translated it to the fact that if you're spending that 1 hour extra, that means you're spending 10% more time on the same problem than your colleagues. That means compounding effect will kick in, and
Okay.
you will be 100 times better over a period of time. So I think it's just that intent, because it starts with the intent to spend 10 minutes. फिर वो आप घर पे करो, office में करो, that's all kind of logistics now. But your intent to see, when you do a startup, what are you committed to do? You're saying मैं सोऊंगा नहीं, जगूंगा नहीं, 7 दिन है, I will put 18 hours a day into my startup. So effectively, you are saying time equals to, in time from an intent will lead to outcome. That's exactly what that advice is.
Cool. Thank you so much for doing this. It was wonderful talking to the two of you. I'm sure like the audience is going to get immense value from this conversation. And thank you so much for spending our time as well. I know the opportunity cost is very high here for the two of you, but I hope I could do justice to the time.
The opportunity cost here was the afternoon nap, nothing else. So thank you so much, Kushal,
Yeah,
for
thank you so
speaking to
much.
us, and really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.